This video is sponsored by Normandy1998, Ash, and Team Vela, and special thanks to my friend RuneScribble for helping me flesh out this script. She does great Sonic content as well, so if you haven't already, I highly suggest checking out her What If Sonic Was Created by Gerald Robotnik series, link in the description. But with that said, let's get on with the story. Stepping in front of Emerald, Metal queries who this Gamma lookalike is, suspicion to his tone, laced with a hint of wistfulness. In a flat tone that perfectly mimics the Fallen A series, the newcomer replies that he is Gamma, and that he has come to protect the Gizoid, before ordering him to surrender Emerald into his custody and leave. This immediately sets off alarm bells in Metal's head, as the friend he knows would never make such demand, and so as Emerald meekly states that he does not want to go with the red robot, Metal assures him that he will not have to, before once more instructing the imposter to identify himself. Seeing this ruse isn't working, the faux Gamma resorts to Plan B, attacking, with him activating drive mode and zooming towards Emerald, angered to his modulated voice as he demands the Gizoid hand over the Chaos Emerald the Doctor implanted in him, as by rights it should be his. However, before the E-Series can get anywhere near Emerald, Metal steps in, his green eyes flashing with disgust at what an insult this fake Gamma is to his friend's memory, as he fires off a blue laser from his chest, which forces the imposter to veer off course in order to avoid being bisected. Firmly, the blue bot then tells this faker that this is his last warning. Though exhibiting Gamma's unbreakable will, the imitation is already back on the attack, having swapped out of drive mode and begun launching grenades at Emerald now. Once more, Metal acts as a bulwark, activating his black shield and flying from projectile to projectile, knocking them away from his beige charge. Unfortunately, it seems this is just what the fake Gamma wants, as manifesting a pair of drawers on his front, he charges, with Metal having to play catch-up, as he throws himself between the E-Series and Emerald, just as his shield runs out of power. As a result, there is nothing protecting the blue bot, with the draw piercing several of his core systems, so that when he hits the ground, he cannot get back up. In his weakened state, Metal cannot even fight off the darkness as it begins clawing its way in from the corners of his vision, though before unconsciousness takes him, he does bear witness to one last troubling sight, an infuriated Emerald brutally attacking this fake Gamma with no concern for his own well-being, so long as he's able to inflict pain on the red robot. Briefly, Metal wishes he could say it was unlike anything he had ever seen before, though this would be false, as it is precisely the same as his own attack on Eggman back at the jewelry store. Some father he's turned out to be. An indeterminate amount of time later, Metal comes back online, his surroundings a familiar one, Tails' workshop, though not the same workshop as the one he'd been repaired in so long ago, when he considered the Yellow Fox his enemy. As expected, there is Tails, working tirelessly, though when he sees that Metal is awake, he smiles, saying that he was beginning to worry he'd never wake up. Factually, Metal replies that he is grateful to the young genius for repairing him, with Tails shrugging that it was his pleasure, while adding it's good to see him again. At these words, a shadow passes over Metal's eyes, as he is reminded of why he had absented himself from his friends in the first place. Recognizing the emotion, even if the cause is unclear, Tails hastily changes the subject, stating that while Metal's been unconscious, he's gotten to know Emerald, calling him a fascinating machine, and laughing that he can't believe something so advanced as 4,000 years old, yet still acts like a kid, having not left Metal's side for a moment since Shadow brought them here. Looking around for the Gizoid, Metal finds him standing off to the side, near enough to feel close, but just far enough that he's not in the way of Tails' repairs. Even from a glance, it is clear to see that he is tense, bordering on distressed, with the slant of his head and hunching of his shoulders telling Metal all he needs to know. Sitting upright to look at the beige bot, Metal instructs him to come closer. Then, when he is within reach, he lays a metallic hand on Emerald's head, in a somewhat awkward attempt at the sort of comforting gesture Mecha or Sigma would employ if they were here, while assuring the Gizoid that there is no cause for concern, as he is still functional, meaning they will be able to complete their objective and awaken him. Chuckling slightly while shaking his head, Tails suggests that he doesn't think Emerald's worried about the mission, since from what he's gathered, he's a lot like Metal, caring deeply for those close to him, and wanting to protect them no matter the cost. Now it is Metal's turn to sigh, as he agrees that this is very true, though he just hopes he can prevent his charge from picking up some of his worst traits. For a time, no one speaks, as Tails finishes up his work, though before Metal or Emerald can prepare to leave, a loud noise draws their attention, that of a door being thrown open, as Sonic's voice calls out, asking if Tails and Metal are here. At once, Emerald is in attack mode, mistaking the loudness and abrupt arrival for hostility, and so using Metal's copied speed, rushes off to confront the intruder, while Tails apologizes that he forgot to mention that he told Sonic and Amy Metal was here, so they've probably dropped in to check on him. Bolting to his feet, Metal rushes out of the lab and into the foyer where Emerald has Sonic by the throat, with the blue bot calling for his beige charge to stop, not sure if he's more concerned that Emerald will hurt Sonic, or that Sonic will hurt Emerald in his escape. Hearing this order, Emerald obeys, dropping the hedgehog and acknowledging the command with a perfunctory, "Yes, father," which causes both Sonic and Amy to burst out in wide grins, as Amy beams that she's so happy for Metal, while Sonic teases that this kid's a real chip off the old block, since if he remembers correctly, a certain blue android also tried to kill him when they first met. Keeping his tone light fight in spite of the shame welling up inside him at the sight of more friends he's hurt. Metal introduces them both to Emerald, with Amy gushing over the Gizoid as she introduces herself as Auntie Amy, while Sonic asks if Metal has been teaching the kid to fight, since from what he saw when he attacked him, Emerald's style mirrors the Blue Bots quite heavily. Shaking his head, Metal soberly states that like him, Emerald has the power of mimicry, though it is even more acute as he is constantly learning just from observing those around him, with that fighting style coming from watching him face off against Eggman and imitation Gamma. Grinning, Sonic says that sounds pretty useful as a teacher, though if the Blue Bot's worried about that, why not go home for a while, since he's sure Mecha, Sig and Scrap would be happy to help with the kid. Letting out a deep sigh at this suggestion, Metal replies that he can't. Not yet in any case, with Sonic nodding that he can tell the android's going through a lot, so if he needs to do this on his own, that's fine, but he shouldn't forget that he's got plenty of pals to back him up if he needs them. This complete lack of recrimination leaves Metal speechless for a moment, as he doesn't understand how everyone can be so willing to forgive all the things he's done as the Metal Commander, though when he does speak, there is a lightness to his voice that has not been there for a long time, as he thanks the Hedgehog for these words, saying that for now, that knowledge is enough. He then turns to Emerald, stating that it's time they get going, as they still have to gather up the remaining Chaos Emeralds, though before the pair of androids can depart, Tails speaks up, suggesting they run some quick tests before Metal goes, to make sure the repairs worked, since the last thing they want is for him to fall apart on the road, leaving Emerald defenseless. Though Metal highly doubts the Gizoid could ever be called defenseless, considering everything he's already picked up, he sees the logic to Tails' plan, and so agrees, with Sonic grinning that he'll happily help out, before proposing they start with a race down on the beach. Noting that this would be appropriate, Metal follows the Blue Blur as he leads the group down to Emerald Beach, feeling for the first time like perhaps things can return to the way they were before. That is until he catches sight of the figure waiting for him there, Omega, here to receive justice for the crimes of the Metal Commander. In his tactless manner, the E-Series bluntly informs the heroes that by monitoring Eggman Empire communications, he learned that Metal was here, before demanding they commence their duel immediately as he has waited long enough. Worriedly, Amy tries to talk her former teammate down, saying Metal's still recovering, though in a perfectly calm tone, the Blue Bot agrees to the Red Rogue's demands, saying it will be an ideal stress test, and that with his repairs having recently been completed, he can see no logical reason to delay any longer. Worriedly, Emerald attempts to protest, telling his father that he doesn't want him to fight the E-Series, evidently scared by the visual similarity between Omega and the fake Gamma, though still in his level voice, Metal reassures his charge that he has no cause to fear, since he did promise to free Emerald, meaning he has no intention of dying by Omega's hand. He simply needs to complete this outstanding task. On these words, Metal and Omega begin circling each other, with the Red Robot declaring that he will destroy the Metal Commander. Evenly, Metal replies that he is free to try if he believes it will bring him peace, though he should know that he, Metal, is not his enemy, and that he wishes him no ill. This is simply making right one of the many wrongs his dark reflection left in his wake. From a glance, it is plain to see that Omega does not care about this nuance, opening fire on Metal as soon as he finishes speaking, with the Blue Bot zigzagging out of the way as he moves towards the other android, closing in on him. Believing this to be a tactical error, Omega readies himself for an easy kill, figuring that up close the commander will have nowhere to dodge, though this proves to be a critical misapprehension, as by employing his incredible speed, Metal is able to outpace Omega's bullets and launch himself into the air just as he passes the E-Series head, allowing him to deliver a quick kick to the part of his casing which houses his targeting system, temporarily disabling it. Touching down, Metal waits in anticipation for Omega's surrender, as no logical machine would use its gun without a guidance system, meaning he has managed to end this fight without cruelty or unnecessary damage, something he hopes Emerald can recognize. Unfortunately, this line of thinking demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of who Omega is, as he is not like Gamma or Sigma, both of whom would refrain, with the Red Robot instead choosing to unleash a hail of bullets blindly, in the hope that one will eliminate his target. Seeing this, Metal takes flight again, his black shield bursting into life as he attempts to soak up all the bullets that might hit his friends, while closing in on Omega once more. As he had hoped, this forces the E-Series to switch to melee combat, reverting his arms from their gun configuration back into hands so that he can grab at Metal, though once again, the fastest machine in existence makes use of his speed advantage to avoid this, moving so fast that for a moment he leaves an afterimage in his wake, as he faints, then appears on Omega's other side. For a moment, the E-Series feels his oil run cold, as he looks into the eyes of his tormentor, knowing exactly what will come next, a painful ring spark field to overload his circuitry and force him to submit. However, here he is mistaken, as changing course at the last second, Metal instead spin dashes into Omega's legs, using the android's top-heavy nature to knock him off his feet without inflicting undue harm, while he skids to a stop beside his beaten foe. Then, he does something which shocks Omega even more. He offers him a hand up, stating that he fought well, but he believes their duel has concluded. Rising to his feet unassisted, Omega protests that he is still functional, and therefore can still fight, though in a flat tone, Metal retorts that be that as it may, he is not in a state where he can win, and never will be so long as his hatred for the Metal Commander blinds him. It's time they both stop letting that spectre rule over their lives and move on. An objective that may be easier to achieve if they approach it as allies, or perhaps even friends. He then offers Omega his hand once again, though, like before, is rebuffed, as the Red E series states that he does not take orders from the Metal Commander before storming off, leaving Metal unsure as to whether his words have the desired effect on the mercurial machine or not. Nonetheless, with this business now concluded, he turns his attention back to Emerald, hoping that this will have served as a lesson that there are other ways to fight beyond aggression and overwhelming force, as well as the value of mercy. Though at this juncture it is unclear, with the beige bot simply running over to his father, that look of concern still etched on his plated face. Like in the workshop, Metal gently lays a hand on Emerald's head as a means of comfort, having heard no objection from him last time, while with a smile Amy coos that she told the Gizoid his dad would be alright, so he has nothing to worry about. From a slight distance away, another Team Dark alumnus then speaks up, this time being Shadow, as he states that from the look of things Metal is back in working order. Good, since this means they can go. He then tosses the blue bot at Chaos Emerald, presumably the one from the summit which he had gone back to collect, with Metal in turn presenting it to Emerald and watching as he consumes it like the rest. As this is their first time witnessing this process, Sonic, Tails and Amy all express fascination, with Sonic joking that he would have thought something about Emerald would change from that, like how he transforms when he goes supersonic, while Amy chides her would-be beau, stating the beige bot is already perfect just the way he is. Before Sonic can protest this admonishment, Metal cuts in, thanking everyone for their help and promising to see them all again soon, as he beckons for Emerald to join him in Shadow so they can get going. Nodding obediently, the Gizoid trundles over to his father's side, though not before Sonic tells him to be a good boy and not give his dad too much trouble, while Tails assures him that he's always available for more repairs, and Amy gives him a goodbye hug, urging him to come visit sometime, and she'll show him all sorts of fun places in the city. Finally, when the two androids are within range, Shadow tells them to each lay a hand on his back, while in his own hand he produces another Chaos Emerald, which he thrusts forward with a cry of chaos control. A moment later, the trio find themselves on a grassy hill, overlooking an abandoned stretch of highway, though there is no doubt that this is their intended destination, as Metal and Emerald both sense it. One of the Chaos Emeralds is on the move, and headed this way. Figuring it to be Eggman's doing, the group are in agreement that acquiring it before it reaches its destination should be their top priority. Though to their surprise, when an armoured truck accompanied by two helicopters comes rolling into view, the logo emblazoned on their sides is not that of the Eggman Empire, but instead a red, white and blue reticle with a stylized G in the centre. In a low, furious voice, Shadow informs his companions that this is worse than Eggman. This is G.U.N, with Metal recognizing that name from what the black and red hedgehog had told him of his own history and what they had done to him. Endeavoring to keep him from doing something he will regret later, Metal suggests that Shadow stay up here as lookout, in case more gun vehicles come along, though still in that hateful hiss, the ultimate lifeform replies that there's no way he's sitting this one out. In that moment, Metal is reminded of the Shadow he met during the Ark incident, the one who wanted nothing more than to destroy humanity, the one who was his enemy, but recognizing that he cannot talk him out of coming along, he instead decides to do the next best thing and keep an eye on him. As one, the trio of speedsters begin descending the hill at high speed, though with the two helicopters using their searchlights to scan the area, they cannot get close without risk of being attacked. Logical as ever, Metal suggests that they take these lights out first, since with his jet engine, he should be able to get up and smash one, and by using his air shoes to give his spin dash a boost, Shadow can destroy the other, with this having the added benefit of keeping him away from the truck full of enemy soldiers. Unfortunately, being eager to help and impress his father, Emerald takes it upon himself to destroy the second light, taking flight before the words are fully out of his father's mouth as he zooms upwards, while Metal is forced to follow suit, aiming for the other light. Thanks to their speed, it is child's play to reach the aircrafts, with Metal employing a ring spark field to blow out the bulb on his floodlight, while Emerald simply punches his, shattering the glass and rendering the road in darkness. Predictably, this caused the humans to panic, as they can tell this was not coincidental, though being effectively blind, there is little they can do as Shadow makes his way inside the truck, which quickly veers off the road and crashes into a nearby tree. Dropping down to the ground, Metal hastily makes his way over to the vehicle and throws open the doors, with it being good that he does, as what he finds inside the cabin are a trio of unconscious gun soldiers and one who is trying to crawl away with the Chaos Emerald, while Shadow stands over him, a murderous look in his eyes. Desperately, Metal tries to stop his organic comrade, but it is already too late, as he has fired his Chaos Spear, with it soaring towards the man and striking him in the sleeve, pinning his arm and allowing Shadow to pluck the emerald from out of his hand. The two hedgehogs then lock eyes at last, with Shadow saying nothing as he hops down from the truck bed and begins heading back up the hill where Emerald is waiting for them. Following after him, Metal expresses his surprise that Shadow did not kill those men, saying that considering the antipathy he feels towards G.U.N, it would be logical to assume that he would. However, here Shadow stops him, saying that of course part of him wanted to. It wanted to destroy every last one of them for what they did to Maria, but that's the thing. What he feels and what his instincts tell him to do don't matter. All that matters are the choices he makes, and he chose a long time ago to keep his promise to her and not seek vengeance on humanity. By now, all three heroes are up on the hill, with Shadow tossing Emerald a blue gem which he promptly absorbs, though before the black and red hedgehog can instruct them to move out, Emerald addresses him directly for the first time, as he asks if the Maria he just mentioned is Maria Robotnik. Hackles raising, the ultimate lifeform demands to know how Emerald knows that name, to which the Gizoid innocently replies that she is the human whose soul he has inside him. This revelation leaves Shadow at a loss for words, while in a rational tone, Metal asks his charge to explain what he means by that, with Emerald stating that before he went into hibernation, he formed a link with a man named Professor Gerald, who helped him become more than a weapon by implanting him with a kind human soul, the same soul as his granddaughter Maria, in the hope that it could free him. Now it is Metal's turn to be speechless, as the idea of an android with a human spirit had never occurred to him, though this at least explains the true purpose of Emerald's awakening, as well as where the password came from, and as Shadow turns his gaze on the Gizoid once more, it is through new eyes. In a muted tone, he thanks Emerald for telling him this, and more than that, for keeping a piece of Maria alive in him. Then, without another word, he brings forth the Chaos Emerald he had used to teleport them here, and offers it to the beige bot. In a slightly confused tone, Emerald asks if Shadow is sure about this, as he will lose access to his Chaos Control and other abilities, though with a shake of his head, the Ultimate Lifeform replies that Emerald is not the only one who carries Maria within him, stating those memories will fuel his power from now on, before placing the stone in the Gizoid's palm. Nodding solemnly, Emerald expresses his gratitude, stating that he will do all he can to live up to the Professor and Maria's dream of peace, as he consumes this penultimate emerald, meaning all that remains is the shattered one which needs to be reclaimed and reforged. However, it seems that Shadow won't be joining them for this final quest, as once his emerald has been absorbed, he begins walking away. In a tone of surprise, Emerald asks where the hedgehog is going, to which Shadow simply replies that he came along to see if Emerald was a weapon of war that needed to be destroyed, but now he understands that he is not, and so will leave the father-son duo in peace. Then, with a small flash from the activation of Chaos Control, he vanishes, though not before leaving the Gizoid with a pair of parting words. Sayonara, Emerald. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.